Hello, everyone. My name is Kim Torres, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator here at ImageSource, and I'm happy to be your host for today's presentation on the paperless courtroom. I want to thank you for joining us this morning to learn how the Superior Court of California, Stanislaus County, is developing end-to-end paperless case processing capabilities. Unfortunately, Stanislaus was the victim of a power transformer blowing this weekend, and since they are deep in crisis recovery, Anthony Paradiso, who is the IT manager at Stanislaus, is unable to present this morning. But he will be joining us later at the end of the presentation for questions and answers. So I'm going to be stepping in for Anthony today for the presentation portion, and then Mark Staley, who is the ImageSource systems engineer that has been the dedicated resource in the design and development of the paperless solution at Stanislaus County and is very familiar with the project, will be handling the demo portion of today's presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. Just a quick disclaimer first. As I go through these slides, I'm going to be speaking from the point of view of the court. ImageSource and Stanislaus have had such a collaborative relationship that when I say we, I'm referring to the whole implementation team from conception to execution. So as part of their roadmap for technology initiatives for courts statewide, the Judicial Council of California put out an RFP to select document management technologies that would become the recommended solution for document capture, workflow, and content repositories. Two sets of technologies were selected, which allow courts to bypass their own RFP and then just purchase directly. So Fresno and Santa Clara counties were early adopters of the document management systems. Fresno chose one of the recommended solutions, and Santa Clara chose the other. So in the meantime, Stanislaus held off to observe how the implementations would go and what lessons could be learned from the two different implementations. Stanislaus was impressed with how things went at Fresno, so they decided to use the same technology solution. So the first department they decided to go with was the Department of Child Support Services. And this was selected as the ideal place to start to utilize paperless technologies for a couple of reasons. It had just one courtroom and a relatively low volume of cases. We began with documents only and designing a system that would allow judges to view each document in the case electronically based on the document types. Case files were viewed on a large tablet that lays on the bench, and this was done to recreate the feeling of the case file in front of the judge, so not to block their line of sight while speaking to people in the courtroom. So this slide is an overview of how the basic components of the document management solution as it was first utilized by DCSS. And as we go on, you'll see how these technologies have become the foundational core for all paperless initiatives that have been implemented in the court. So the first stage in the process is the input of documents. We do this by digitizing paper documents via scanning, imported digital documents, and also monitored FTP and file shares for content. From there, the documents were processed through workflow. In workflow, users index, which means typing in relevant data that helps to identify the document. Validation of this content is automated through database lookups from the court's case management systems. In the workflow process, there are a lot of repetitive decisions based on rules that ensure that a document ends up in the correct spot every time, and it helps to eliminate human error. Once the content is ingested and processed, it lands in a final resting spot, the repository. The repository stores all of the content in corresponding metadata, or the index values, which allows users to access files quickly when they search for it. An additional benefit at Stanislaus realized through this core system was in data auditing through a continual push and pull of the data between the repository and the case management system. Stanislaus considers this a triple check so that all the data is accurate. So after the course system was in place, it was decided to replace manually filled out paper forms with electronic forms, or eForms, in the courtroom. Electronic forms are created prior to hearings and completed right in the courtroom on tablets and on desktop units. Forms are also signed electronically using a stylus on the tablet surface or by using e-signature pads. The eForms also perform database lookups for real-time data insertion for better accuracy. Commonly used verbiage can be selected from drop-down lists, allowing long, complicated forms to be filled out quickly and correctly. Prompts require that all variables be filled in on the form. This feature is significant because prior to going digital, paper forms were hard to read and not always filled out correctly, as you can imagine. Forms cannot be submitted unless the form is completed with data and signatures and so on, providing another quality check. So now that we have covered DCSS, let's move on into family law. So the implementation at family law was much more complex. It has 4 courtrooms with a much higher volume of large cases being seen every day. They also share cases with DCSS, which was live and in production when family law began testing. This was beneficial in that it helped some of the judges and the clerks in family law get intermittent exposure to the system, because DCSS digital cases would end up on their calendar and they would be required to view them digitally. Because of the size of family law, Stanislaus conducted multiple levels of testing, allowing a controlled implementation and higher user acceptance. The goal throughout this phase was to initially match and eventually decrease current times to hear a court case, because we know with increasing volume of cases, every minute in court counts. So family law uses the same core document management system components. So just like DCSS, it had input, workflow, and a repository integration into the case management system. In addition, Stanislaus needed to find a digital solution to replicate how they prepped their paper calendar. So we looked at their existing web calendar, which they had been using in conjunction with their paper files. I should mention that the web calendar is a proprietary technology designed and built by the court's IT department. The web calendar was converted so not only did it show the cases for that day, but it now allowed users to click on those cases and see all associated digital documents. Now the judges can look at their calendar for any day, click on the case, and view any associated documents with that case file. We also integrated a way for judges and clerks to view related cases from any department. So the paperless system is being used by DCSS and family law courtrooms. Criminal law is currently in pre-production, waiting to go live, and traffic is in progress while other departments are just waiting and they're just lined up. So as with any new introduced process, change can have its challenges. The good news is that the departments are hearing about the successes at DCSS and family law, and the departments that are now waiting to get on board are starting to look forward to going digital. Because Stanislaus has been aggressive in their timeline to go paperless, they've been diligent about doing things in the rollout that will ensure successful implementation from testing to user acceptance. So the courts that are using the web calendar and document management systems are experiencing a ton of benefits. They have a huge reduction in time spent looking for lost or misplaced case files. Of course, the clerks used to spend a lot of time looking for those misplaced files. Documents are at users' fingertips, and they're displayed the way each individual prefers. In addition, cases can be viewed by multiple people at the same time, so clerks, judges, and other relevant personnel. So the flow of the courtroom, it never stops. Web calendar, or the heard cases, which is an indicator that allows users to view the progress of the courtroom at any time. And Mark will explain this more when he goes into the demo portion of the web calendar. Electronic forms provide another set of benefits, starting with the fact that they're always legible. So in addition, they have cleaner and more accurate data. They're faster to fill out. And once they're submitted, they're available immediately to all authorized users. Finally, the forms can be distributed electronically to justice partners, eliminating the needs to print copies in the courtroom. So let's expand on how Stanislaus County now shares digital information with justice partners. Partners can send eForms and other digital formats to the court for validation, after which they are released then into the repository. This is one source of the documents that will be accessed by the judges via the web calendar during the hearing. Justice partners can request documents that reside in the repository. Some with authorized access to the repository can even do a restricted search and download documents. So not only does this eliminate courier services and other physical means of retrieving documents, but these documents can be ingested and contributed to immediately into the case files. So another form of access that has facilitated through the use of self-service kiosks for customers and justice partners. Case documents that are not confidential are made available at the kiosk to anyone at the courthouse. There is also a confidential viewing station that is controlled by the clerks based on security credentials for parties to the case and justice partners to access certain documents. So now with fewer resources required to work the records request window, the county has saved considerable time. Their printing costs have also decreased. And for customers and partners, it means that they will be able to view documents in minutes versus waiting in long lines at the request window. So in addition to justice partners contributing documents, other external integration was implemented for e-filing. For this phase, the state-generated electronic forms are submitted online and routed to the county court. At Stanislaus County, they go through workflow where they're approved or rejected. They can be stamped based on DCSS requirements. They're automatically indexed and submitted to the repository, and they can be bundled with the associated documents and then sent back to state agencies. Now there are only 2 clicks required in this process, and the rest is automated. Paper and labor associated with processing has been eliminated, and the time to process has been reduced from hours to just minutes. A couple of things to note about how Stanislaus has been getting the most bang for their buck with these technologies is that this particular project was developed by Stanislaus County on their own, utilizing the tools and examples of existing workflows. And e-stamp and e-signatures used for the e-filing process and on eForms have also been used for mediation reports and will be used for future administrative uses. So e-filing has made Stanislaus compliant with the DCSS, while internally the court is benefiting from an almost fully automated process. The entire process has been sped up from start to finish and allows good quality forms to be standardized for sending and receiving agencies, making everyone's job much easier. So now with automation, all case processing either done or in the works, the county is looking at future projects to make case documents even more accessible via a public web portal. Case documents that are not confidential will be available at no charge for the public viewing. Once a user has searched for and found the desired document, he or she will have the option to print or download for a small convenience charge collected through a shopping cart. These fees are collected, and they'll be nominal, but collectively they will offset implementation and maintenance costs. The public portal will eliminate the need for the public and partners to physically come to the courthouse to view documents, and since access will be via the web browser, viewing can take place 24/7 and will not be limited just to the courthouse hours. And finally, when the portal is in use, no labor will be required to fulfill those requests. So hopefully this is giving you a good picture of how Stanislaus has become a truly paperless court, from public viewing to viewing cases on the bench. And so next, Mark is going to get started on the demo and show you several pieces of the solution so you can experience the actual environment in which that's being used. I'm going to hand it over to you, Mark.
So first off, I'm just going to demonstrate real quick how their capture process works. And this is just going to be really simple. We don't need to spend a lot of time. What I did here is I just ingested a couple. We use these separator sheets to break up the documents in the case. And the reason that I'm kind of just showing this is because we just want to make sure that everyone can see, you know, how these cases are broken up each time and ingested into the system. Okay, so like we were talking about earlier, how we constantly are just working back and forth with the case management system, because that is truly how we're going to speed up all of these processes. And so as we bring these documents in, this is where we punch in this case number, as I punch in this case number again. And what this does is it just fires off a lookup. Now, for demo purposes, we're not showing all the relevant information that goes along with these files, but when you hit this portion of it actually fires off and you pull back all this information from the case management system. Then the document is then indexed, and then the user moves on to the next document. As you see, we carry the case number throughout so they don't have to keep typing in this overall. All they do is two-click. They select the document type and they put in the file mark document date. That is, everything else is pulled in. Sometimes they put in a DCSS number, but that stuff is carried through. So we just kind of wanted to show a brief glimpse of how this system kind of gets all of these documents into the system at a rapid pace also. So as I kind of segue into the next stage, which is pulling back these documents, I'm going to segue right into the web calendar. So like I said before, this web calendar is Stanislaus County's proprietary calendar. So everyone's going to have the same kind of calendar. It's going to look similar in a lot of ways, but the only difference for most people's calendar is this one is fully dynamic to the repository. We are currently on demo systems right now, and so they're not as beefed up as production systems. Just know that if there's delays, in real time, these documents are pulled up instantaneously. When the judges come in, they've always used this system. They choose their start date, which is usually their department, based on where they're sitting that day or whatever courtroom they're in. And all these other events are kind of just custom sorted for whoever's viewing the calendar. Like I said, everything's customizable. So the biggest advantages, though, is this calendar allows them just to look like they have a big stack of case files in front of them. But what we needed to do is we needed to accomplish a couple of things where, at a glance, the judges constantly need, and even the clerks, need to know what's electronic and what's not. So what we overcame is we need to tell them when something's electronic, because not all of these courts are going to be going to be able to just flip every case file that they have instantly in a matter of days and say, hey, guess what, we're electronic. You know, every resource to scan for the next year. So we did the system so that one, they can slowly integrate these electronic forms in there, but now you can see when you click on these, so these are criminal cases, which means that they pull up multi-defendant cases. So when this case comes up, it shows the judge, you know, okay, obviously this person within the case, either they're not digitized yet, or they might have a paper portion of the file sitting on their bench, and they're viewing to digital. Normally, majority of these are all digital, but stuff's going to happen, so we had to kind of accommodate those things. So the judge can, at a glance, can just pull up any of these documents at any time. When they pull up these documents, it will retrieve the document, it will display the document, and then they can kind of just view it like they would on a paper. So we kind of did this left to right thing, where they view documents, and just like a case file, their fly leaf would be on the left, and then as they look through documents, they're on the right. So another great advantage, though, that we found was we wanted to be able to show relevant or related cases, because as you see when you click on these names of these people, these are related cases. As a lot of people in the justice system know, that sometimes criminals have more than one case. So they constantly need to know that information. And obviously for demo and test system, we're not showing all the related cases, but Stanislaus County is catching up with a lot of this backlog, and they're getting all these related cases in. So, this is a huge thing to be able to just pull old cases up and see what happened on their older cases, or see if they have current cases going right now, which allowed them to have every piece of information that they needed at the time and not having to continuously continue these court cases. And as you can see too, with this one case, these two defendants are seen, and so as this one is seen, the judge can just minimize this. See, actually, I'm mistaken. There's more than 3 defendants. So, and as he or she sees this, they can just check these off and then move on, and then at the last person, they can be done with this case. Now, they don't need to close this window. Majority of the judges just click on the next case, and you'll see it kind of flip over, and it'll just pull up the new case. So this allows them to constantly just move with the flow of the courtroom and never stop. And the great thing is the clerks are doing the exact same thing. They're following along as the judges. So they're grabbing documents the same exact time as the judge is doing this. So these were huge hurdles that the judges really, I think, started to actually enjoy and have, all of this information right at their fingertips. So this was a big accomplishment for everyone. So I'm going to kind of show you also the heard portion that I spoke about earlier, and how, as you can see, you check the cases as you're working through them, and you update the cases. So as that's updated, now the counter clerks can also see what's going on in your courtroom. But this is their main dashboard, essentially, for how they conduct court all day. And they have everything they need. They have no need to call case files. There's nothing. They have all their information that they've always used. They can sort it whenever they want. They can do whatever they want. And the great thing is let's just say hypothetically something was missed. It was filed late, as we know that attorneys will file stuff late, and it gets scanned, and then the judge will just refresh, and instantly that will pull back into the case. So that is the web calendar from A to Z. I'm going to move on now to the last phase, and this will just be a very quick overview of, just so everyone can kind of see the eForms portion. This is an actual form. I filled it out earlier. So how these forms kind of work, and we're going to go pretty quickly through this. As you can see, as I punch in this case number, all this data got populated. This is like if an attorney staged this up and pulled it up at a later time. These forms are fully dynamic. But they have rules. So don't get me wrong. If you miss something, it'll tell you. So all of these checkboxes I was talking about earlier. Obviously, it won't let me check that checkbox until I follow the rules. These pick lists allow the attorneys not have to keep typing in the same thing every time, so they can choose multiple values here, and they can just, okay, this is what the judge just stated. I do it, and then I submit it on. So for demo purposes, we're going to move on, and this is just like if the judge now opened this for me, and so the judge will look at this and say, Mark Staley, it's going to be remanded. That's not good. And it's a full pay. So the judge looks at this, approves everything that was said earlier by the attorney. They use a stylus and also an ink pad, but as we mentioned earlier, you can use either one. And then I just sign my little name. The great thing is it populates the date of the actual signature, so there's no more clicking. The judge just says, looks good to me, and then they will proceed on. So then he or she will submit this form, and it moves on to the clerk. And the clerk is kind of our final stop for this. And so the clerk looks at it, everything looks good. They'll always verify that there's a signature, and the form actually won't let it go through without one. And they have this little thing, which is a stamp. And this is kind of integrated just like the e-signature and the e-stamp portion. But you can see that it pulls data and does everything else to where you're getting real-time data There's no mistakes, no nothing. So, and it pulls in my signature from a previous time. So once this is submitted, it goes directly into the repository, and it's live for anyone to view that has access to that, and a copy gets sent to the other users. This was just a piece of the court solution that we were trying to get into this webinar. We'll be happy to follow up with more demos or anything that anyone has any questions about.
Got some people that might need a little bit more clarification.
Which, yeah.
On the web calendar.
Okay.
What does it mean when he says the calendar is dynamic with the system, and who built that, and how is it pulling its data?
Okay. So the way that this calendar is dynamic, and the reason we say it's dynamic is because as information is, and this is a great question, by the way, if anything is put into the system through capture or import or any other source, it's immediately refreshed when that button was hit submit. So like I said, those documents, if they weren't there a second ago and you hit submit because you're notified that another document has been included in the case that was missed, it instantly is there. So it's not just a stagnant, you get one shot at pulling the documents back. It's constantly pulling from that. And so what that web calendar is doing is it's just pinging the case management system. So it's pulling that data back and it's displaying that. But then for the documents, what those are doing is they're relaying what the case management system has done and what it's actually looking at based on the case number, and then it goes out to the repository and pulls that database and pulls that relevant data back, which gives you a live link to that image. So, and that's very generic. It's not proprietary to Stanislaus web calendar or the repository we're using. We can do that anywhere that you do addressable searches or hyperlinks to images. You can make those connections through the case number or any unique identifier to those images.
Anthony, have you been able to join us on the line this morning?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Welcome, everybody. Anthony was able to make it. So, Anthony, we probably have a couple questions for you as well here. So, go through here. In what area have you experienced the biggest benefits?
I would have to say that time savings, one, for not having to take all of the paper files from the clerk's office to the courtrooms and looking for the files. There's constantly emails going out in the divisions that aren't on DMS yet for, do you have this file? Have you seen this file? And inevitably it's buried on somebody's desk that they didn't even realize it, or it could be with one of the research attorneys, something along that lines. But just in staff time savings, I would say, is our biggest area.
And Anthony, I think this one would go to you too. What was the timeline to get to where you are now?
We actually had a fairly aggressive timeline. We started the initial project the end of May of 2013, and our DCSS department, or our 4D department, came online in August of 13. So it was a fairly fast turnaround, and we've been kind of doing that for all the units that we're rolling out. The eForms started around September, and then the first one went live in November. And then the second one went live in January. Then our family law department went live in April of this year. And we've just been moving forward ever since.
And Mark, this one might be for you. How do the public defender, prosecutor, and outside attorneys view the documents, and do you charge outside attorneys?
Based on those case numbers, they just dump them out, and they're in a PDF format. So I don't think Anthony charges the other justice partners. They just dump them out.
No, we do not.
Yeah, and they can just pull those back whenever they need. Or there has been arrangements, I think, talked about to where they have their own individual, like DCSS I know has their own individual folder that we just dump to, and they absorb it nightly or daily or hourly. So wherever there's FTP connections and file shares, that's the majority of, and some attorneys I think just have access to, a share folder. So if they need, or if they need a copy of something emailed to them even, they can ask the clerk down the, can you just email this to me? So there's multiple different solutions. We don't care, as long as you give us a spot to drop it, you can get to the file, no matter what system it is.
Do you have any experience migrating existing content from other management systems?
We're not really proprietary to any case management system pulling that data out. So we have migrated not only some for Stanislaus County, they had some older existing images that we actually migrated from, I believe, their Fortis system into their new system. And it was just a very simple migration from that system into the new system. But we're also able to pull out of any other system and integrate those into another repository, file share. So yes, migrations, we do a ton of them.
Is each county hosting their own solution?
I would say yes. As of now, I would say that most counties are doing their own, supporting their own system. There might be a few that are collaborating, and that is something that I know that there's a few that are looking at, but currently I would say that they're managing their own systems.
We're implementing a new case management system that has e-filing capability. How does your e-filing solution differ from one that comes as part of the case management system?
So the main difference of the e-filing solution that we built is it's not proprietary to any case management system. So it's essentially a standalone solution that can be used anywhere. So if a case management system doesn't have an e-filing, this can be used with it. But if you have a current system with e-filing and you ever switch, this will work with a new one, it will work with the old one, it'll work with the current one. So we don't embed ourselves with the case management system, and it kind of allows us to stand alone so that solution never has to be requalified too. So no matter what it is, it works with any case management system, and that's the main difference because those can change, as everyone knows, over time.
Anthony, is there, since you're able to join us, is there anything that you wanted to add before we wrap up here?
It's been a whirlwind for this project. A lot of it went fairly rapidly because we did have some additional funds that we were able to spend last year, and as a court, we made the decision to go in the direction of paperless. The overall process was fantastic. We haven't had any issues with the solution that we've had so far, and that's been a great thing. And if I had to do it again, we'd go down the same path. The savings that we're seeing in staff time has been well worth it. We've been able to shuffle a few people around just from those savings. So we're looking forward to, as we progress more, as we get our criminal department up, as we get traffic up, realizing even more savings, savings on storage for paper files. That's something that we dealt with for a long time. So those are the things that we're really looking forward to.
Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to having you on the next presentation.